Hey everyone, and welcome back to this class, Deep Reinforcement Learning, Deep Learning in Python Part 7. In this lecture, we're going to tackle the final piece of this puzzle, which is worker.py. The worker is essentially what lives inside each thread, and so it does a majority of the work, hence its name. To begin this lecture, I want to first discuss what this file is supposed to do at a high level before jumping into the code. So this is going to help you anticipate everything we see in this pretty long lecture. Remember that the worker is what runs in the thread, so there are going to be multiple workers running in parallel. We know that each worker has to have its own version of the policy and value networks, and therefore the worker has to be able to copy the current weights from the global networks over to its local networks. So we're going to have some kind of function that copies the weights from the master policy and value networks over to the worker's version of those networks. In addition, we still haven't discussed how we're going to update the weights of the global networks. Recall that the gradients are going to be calculated for the local networks, and these gradients are going to be used to update the global networks. So that's another function we have to write, something that updates the global networks using the local gradients. We also need some other basics, such as a function to convert the images from the game into grayscale and downsample them. Then we need a function to concatenate 4 consecutive frames from the game into a single array. So that's what's going to be the state to our neural networks. We'll also need a way to group each step of the game together. So that's going to keep track of the state, action, reward, next state, and whether or not the episode ended. We can use this object to then form the inputs and targets to update the weights of our neural networks. So that's just a short summary of everything the worker has to do. So now let's get to the code. At the top, we have all our usual imports, as well as create networks from nets.py. The first thing we're going to do is create a class called step, which stores a step of an episode. This class doesn't have any functions, just attributes. So essentially, this is just for the purpose of data storage and organization. We want to keep track of the state, the action in that state, the reward, the next state, and the done flag. Next, we have the image transformer class. In the constructor, we're going to define the TensorFlow operations that need to be done in order to transform the image. The first step is to convert the image to grayscale using the function RGB to grayscale. Next, we're going to crop the image to remove the irrelevant parts. Finally, we're going to resize the image to 84 by 84 and squeeze the output to get rid of redundant dimensions. In the transform function, we run the above operations in a session and return a NumPy array. Next, we have some useful functions for creating states out of each frame we collect. First, we have a function called repeat frame. The reason we need this is because when we begin an episode, we're only going to have one frame. But in order to build a state out of it, we need 4 consecutive frames. So what we do is just repeat the same initial frame 4 times. That will be our first state. The next function, shift frames, takes in a state along with the next frame to build the next state. Basically, all this does is removes the oldest frame from the state and then concatenates the next frame to the other end. Next, we have a function called getCopyParamsOp. When we copy the weights from one network to another, we can express it in terms of TensorFlow operations, which is what this does. So we're going to take in a list of 2 sets of variables, the source variables and the destination variables. In order to make sure they appear in the right order, we're going to sort them by name. Then we're going to use TensorFlow's assign function to represent each copy operation. Finally, we're going to return a list of these operations. Next, we have a function called makeTrainOp. So normally, when we have a TensorFlow optimizer, we just call the minimize function, and that's our trainOp. But in this case, we need to do something special because we're using the gradients of one network to update the weights of another network. So this function takes in a global network and a local network. The first thing we do is get a list of the local gradients. Then we clip the gradients to have a maximum norm of 5. Then we get a list of variables which come from the global network. And then we combine the list of variables and corresponding gradients into a single list called local grads global vars. And now this is in the right format to pass into the function which actually updates the weights. So we call the function applyGradients, which belongs to the global nets optimizer. We pass in the list we just created and also a global step variable, which, if you recall, we defined earlier. Next, we have the worker class. As we discussed earlier in main.py, it takes in the following arguments: name, which is its name; environment, which is an environment object; policyNet and valueNet, which are the global policy network and value network; global counter, the returns list, the discount factor, and the maximum number of global steps to take. Next, we assign all these inputs to the attributes of the worker, and we also assign the TensorFlow global step, as well as create an instance of the image transformer class. The next thing we want to do is create local versions of the policy network and the value network. So we just call the createNetworks function, which we've used earlier. Note how we can use the worker's name as the scope since it's going to be unique. Next, we call the function getCopyParamsOp, which we made earlier, and we just save this op to an attribute of a class. The first set of variables we pass in are the global variables, and the second set of variables are the local variables. And therefore, this function is going to be used to copy the weights from the global networks to the local networks. Next, we're going to call makeTrainOp, which we created earlier, on both the value network and the policy network. So we have 2 trainops, one for each network. Finally, we have a state attribute which keeps track of the current state, total reward attribute which keeps track of the total reward, and an attribute returns list which just refers to the global variable returns list. Next, we have the run function, which, as you recall, is what's going to be run by the thread. As you'd expect, this is just a loop. So to start, we're going to reset the environment, get the first frame, transform it, and then repeat it 4 times to get the first state. Then we're going to enter the loop. As you can see, we use the coordinator we created earlier to control when the loop stops. The first thing we do in the loop is copy the weights from the global networks to the local networks. So our worker is always working with a relatively fresh copy of the master network's weights. Next, we run n steps of the environment. This just calls a function called run n steps, which we will look at shortly. And this function returns 2 things: a list of step objects called steps, which, as you recall, contain all the information about states, actions, rewards, and so forth, as well as the global step counter. Next, we check if the global step counter is greater than or equal to the maximum number of global steps we want to take. If it is, we call requestStop on the coordinator, and then we return to exit the run function. This, by the way, is how all the other workers running in parallel also know when to quit. Next, we have the update function, which is actually going to pass in the data we collected during our n steps, take the gradients, and update the global network. So that's the main loop that's going to be running in each thread. Next is just some functions that are going to be called by the run function. First, we have the sample action function. This just takes in a state, passes it into the policy network, and returns an action sampled from the output. As you recall, we always work in batches, so we're effectively working with a batch size of 1, and we want to grab the 0th output. Next, we have the getValuePrediction function. So whereas the previous function gets a prediction from the policy network, this will of course get a prediction from the value network. As before, we're working with a batch size of 1, so we want to grab the 0th output. Next, we have the runNSteps function, which we saw being used earlier. As its name suggests, this function is going to run n steps of the environment. Although there is one exception to this, which is if the episode ends, in which case we'll return early. So the first thing we need to do is initialize an empty list of steps. Then we do a for loop n times. Inside the for loop, we use the current state, pass it into the policy network, and sample an action based on this current state. Then we take this action in the environment. We get back the next frame, the reward, and the done flag. Next, we call the shift frames function to get the next state by adding the current frame to the existing state and removing the oldest frame. Next, we check whether or not this is the end of an episode. That means the done flag is true. If we are done, then we can print the return for this episode along with the worker's name. Then we append the return to our global list of returns. And to help us debug, we're also going to print out the average reward for the last 100 steps every 100 steps. So that's what that looks like. This is going to help us see whether or not the agent is improving over time, since each individual return may vary by a lot. Then we reset the total reward variable to 0. If the done flag is not true, then we simply add the current reward to the total reward, which is how we're going to keep track of the total reward for each episode. Next, we would like to save the step we just took. To do this, we're going to create a step object, which, as you recall, stores the current state, the action, the reward, the next state, and the done flag. Then we append this step to our list of steps. Next, we increment the global step variable. As you recall, the worker always checks this to determine when we should quit. So all the workers are going to be incrementing this same global step within their own threads. Next, we want to update the current state, which is stored in the attribute self.state. So if the episode is done, then we simply reset the environment and repeat the initial frame 4 times. If the episode is not done, then we set self.state to the next state. Finally, we return our list of steps and the global step counter. Alright, almost done. The last function in this file is the update function, which, as you recall, we made use of earlier. At a high level, this function is going to build up the inputs and targets for our neural networks, and then it's going to call the train ops we defined earlier. To recap, here are the quantities we need. First, we need the state at each step, since that's the input into both the policy network and the value network. For the value network, the target is of course the return. For the policy network, the loss is a function of the advantages and actions that were taken in each state. The advantage is, as you recall, the return for the input state minus the predicted value for that state. Now we're going to do a little trick here, which involves making use of what we learned in the end step section. As you recall, Normal temporal difference learning uses a one-step ahead prediction in order to measure the return. So with TD learning, we would always use r plus v of s prime as the return. And that would make r plus v of s prime minus v of s the advantage. But since we've taken n steps, that means we can make use of the n rewards that we collected. And making use of these n rewards makes our prediction of the return more accurate. So if you imagine we've taken 3 steps, so we have the states S1, S2, and S3, and the rewards R1, R2, and R3, then we can calculate the returns as follows. So the return for S3 will be R3 plus V of S4. Now here I've removed gamma just so you can more easily see the pattern. The return for S2 will be R2 plus R3 plus V of S4. And the return for S1 will be R1 plus R2 plus R3 plus V of S4. So in other words, we only need to make a prediction for the very last state value. Of course, if the last state is a terminal state, then the value is 0, so we set the initial reward variable to 0. Otherwise, we set it to the value of the final next state. Next, we accumulate the data for our training batch. Since we're going to multiply gamma to the future returns recursively, we're going to loop through each state in reverse. In the loop, we're going to update the value of the return, which I've slightly misnamed here as reward. From this, I can calculate the advantage, which is just the return minus v of s. Finally, I can append the state to my list of states, append the action to my list of actions, append the advantage to my list of advantages, and append the reward to my list of value targets. Next, I create a feed dict to pass into my TensorFlow session. These are essentially just all the placeholders I defined for our neural networks earlier. And the final step is to do a session.run on the TensorFlow global step variable, the losses, and the train ops. Technically, you don't really need the losses, but you could plot them in order to understand the progress of your model training procedure. So that's everything for this code. Let's run this and see what we get. Okay, so you can see that not only do we do quite well, we achieve this in a much shorter amount of time than we did with deep Q networks.